Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again. Today I want to talk a little bit about the barbells that I own, share some quick thoughts on them. Now, some of these bars I've done full reviews on, and for those cases, I'll also put those in the description box if you want a more thorough explanation or insight into these bars. But I thought I'd just talk about why I have them, some of the things I like, and maybe some of the things I don't like. So let's start off right now with the newest bar that I own, which is the Texas All-American Bar. I almost said Power Bar because it's confusing because their name is Texas Power Bars. And they make a Texas Power Bar, but this is the Texas All-American Bar. And this one actually replaced my Rogue Ohio Bar. So I look at this as like a multi-purpose barbell, kind of a jack of all trades, a master of none, however. Now, some things that I like about it is I like that it has a little bit more passive knurl, and I say that because I originally bought the Rogue Ohio Bar for my wife so she could train and not have to put up with some of the more aggressive knurling on the power bars that I like. It also is a little bit thinner than a traditional power bar at 28.5 millimeters. And the big selling point for me of this bar over the traditional Rogue Ohio Bar is the fact that this one has center knurling, which I think if you're squatting, which everyone should be squatting, I think is a necessity. So this one, in my opinion, is better than the Rogue Ohio Bar, and the reason why I no longer have that particular one. That being said, some negatives about it. It's basically, in my opinion, just a rebranded Texas Power Bar with less aggressive knurling, and they just added in some Olympic weightlifting knurl marks. So if you already own a Texas Power Bar, it'll be a hard sell, in my opinion, to get this unless you just want something with more passive knurling. But that being said, overall, I do think it's a decent bar, and hopefully it'll get some use in the basement. I was going to say hopefully my wife uses it, but then that would be me shaming her into training, which she does not have to do. All right, so the next bar I want to talk about is actually the Rogue Ohio Power Bar, which in my opinion is the best power bar money can buy. Meaning that for the price, it's going to be hard-pressed to find a bar that's better than this. Now, this is the 20 kg version. Some things to quickly note about it. As I mentioned, I think it's the best bar if someone's just going to buy one bar. This is the bar to rule them all, given the fact that on average it costs around $300. It has a good knurling. I wouldn't say it's overly aggressive, at least not in the black zinc oxide coating that I have here. But it is aggressive enough, more than normal gym bar that you would see. It has the center knurling, as I mentioned before. Now, one of the things with this particular barbell that I think will actually be a turnoff for some people, as it is for me, is actually the collars on it itself. So it has very thin collars, which my initial train of thought on getting this was it's going to be perfect because it emulates the bars that I see in competition most frequently, which is an Alico bar, which has very thin collars. It then gets the weights closest to the center of the barbell and really reduces some of the whip that you might notice. But for training, it doesn't really lead to the best experience all the time because it leads me to bang into my rack a lot, especially on walkouts for squats or when I'm doing stuff where I'm re-racking the bar. If I can't center it properly, it's really a pain in the butt because the weights can literally be right next to one of these posts, which is one of the reasons you see me use my rolling J-cups that are behind me right now. So if I were going to get this bar or suggest this bar, I would probably say get one of the other variants, like the 45-pound variant, which has a little bit thicker of a collar and I think will be better for training purposes. And it's also a little bit cheaper. But that being said, you really can't go wrong with a Rogue Ohio Power Bar. All right, next up is my Kabuki Power Bar, which right now is my bar of choice. So when I train on most days, this is the first bar I grab. So even though I just got done telling you I think the Ohio Power Bar is the best bang for your buck or the best bar money can buy, the Kabuki Power Bar is great and I prefer it, but I think many people will not want to go this route due to the price. So just for some reference, that bar I just showed you from Rogue, the 20 kg version, I think retails for something like $325. This Kabuki Power Bar, which is in the electroless nickel finish, which is their highest end finish they offer, I think retails for like $650 or $660, so twice as much. But in my opinion, it's not twice the bar the other one is. So again, I think the Rogue makes more sense for most people. But that being said, I do think that this Kabuki bar is a great bar, and it is my daily driver, if you will. Some of the things I really like about it, as I mentioned, it has a little bit of thicker collars on it. The construction on this bar is just beautiful. With the knurl, I've talked about this in the review video, which again will be linked in the description box. It's not aggressive feeling where you're used to probably like sharp and pointy, but it's coarse enough where it's sticky feeling. It's very hard to describe. It's very unique, but I do really like this. That being said, training with it frequently, it will eat into your hands, even though it says, it's not as sharp and pointy as others. If you're doing things like heavy pulls with this bar or squats, I do think you'll find that it's going to eat into your hands or back just the same over time. So great bar overall. Price, be a lot cooler if it was a little cheaper. Well, a lot cheaper. All right, staying with Kabuki, the next thing I want to talk about is the Duffalo bar. Not the Buffalo, but this is the Duffalo bar. As you can tell, it's cambered. It has a nice bend to it. It's also a very long bar, and it is a thicker bar. So the other power bars that I've shown you up to this point, the Texas bar was 28.5 millimeters. The Ohio Power Bar and the Kabuki Power Bar are 29 millimeters. This one is thicker than that. I want to say it's 30 or 31 off the top of my head. I'd have to double check, but I'll put that on the screen. This is a specialty bar, obviously. The main reason people would get this is because the bend allows you to really take a lot of the stress and pressure off of your shoulders. You can also do some unique things with bench. If you're benching with it, it'll increase the range of motion. That being said, I haven't found much use for this in my own training. Given the time that I have, which isn't that much these days, I tend to stick to the main barbell movements. I don't have any shoulder impingements or issues where I would really need to use this bar over a straight bar. So sometimes I'll try to work it in as an assistance movement, but in most cases I just stick to normal back squats, and I haven't used this bar as much as I would potentially have liked. Some unique things about this bar, in addition to the camber on it, this has more of a camber than a typical Buffalo bar. You also have these movable sleeves, which you don't have on most regular Buffalo bars. There's also screw inserts here where you can attach things like bands and whatnot, so it makes this thing pretty unique. It is definitely overbuilt. It's a solid bar, but again, with Kabuki, you're looking at a solid price. I think this thing retails at something like $600 for the clear zinc finish or the bright zinc finish that I have on this one. Another issue with this bar that I have is if you're using normal J-hooks, then you can see the bar doesn't tend to sit flat. It can shift from side to side. Usually you can fix that a little bit by having your hooks come in a little bit so they're angled. This works a little bit better, but it still can be a little bit scary when you're racking or unracking the bar, or all of a sudden the weight just shifts when you're between sets and it scares the bejesus out of you. So that's the Kabuki Duffalo bar. So next, what we have here is the Texas Deadlift Bar, and one of the big differences about this is obviously longer than some of the other bars you've seen. It's also thinner than some of the other bars you've seen. So this is a 27 millimeter thick bar, so it's very thin. The weight is pushed out, so the bar is longer, as I mentioned. A lot of that is to get more whip or bend in the bar. So when you're doing things like deadlifts, which is the only really thing you should be using this deadlift bar for, you will really get more pull and get in a better starting position before the weight breaks the floor. So that's the big benefit out of this. It typically is supposed to have very aggressive knurling. To be honest, I don't think the knurling on here is too super aggressive. It's very similar to some of the other power bars I use. That being said, if you're really interested in getting a very aggressive knurl, I would really suggest you look into a bar that has no finish. So go for a raw style bar. The maintenance is probably going to be more upkeep on your end, but then that way you don't have things that are actually kind of between you and the barbell itself. So things like this black zinc, it kind of fills in some of that knurl so it's not as aggressive. So that's just something to take into consideration. Now, I don't find I use this bar a ton either, getting back to my main point of using the main barbell movements, but also because recently, in the last 5 years or whatever the case may be, when I compete in federations that don't use deadlift bars. So it doesn't make sense to train on one because it definitely is a different feeling of a pull when you're pulling on a 27 thin bar versus a 29 millimeter power bar, which doesn't have much bend or whip. So I try to practice how I play, or play how you practice, or Allen Iverson and you don't practice at all, because we talk about practice. I haven't found a ton of use for this. I do try to work it in now that I don't have any meets planned. I do like it, but like I said, it is a bit of an adjustment because you do get a better pulling position, but if you don't pull the slack out or aren't used to pulling the slack out, this bar will come to bite you in the ass. And I got a really good deal on this bar. That's one of the main reasons I have it. I think I bought it for like $250 off of a buddy of mine. I think typically they retail for like $400 something. I know Rogue makes one as well. Between the two, from what I've heard and just from based off my own personal use, I found that the Texas bar has a little bit more whip, but the Rogue one's build quality, I think, is just a little bit higher. So either way, you can't really go wrong with either one. but that's the Texas Deadlift Bar. All right, so that brings us to the Elite FTS Yoke or Safety Squat Bar, and I think if you're going to buy one specialty bar outside of a power bar, I think this is the bar that I would recommend. This thing is awesome. As you can tell, it has some heavy-duty padding, handles in front. This allows you to squat safely, protecting your shoulders, but also because of the camber and the way the handles are, you can actually get the weight into different positions or out in front of you. And in many cases for me, I use it to replicate what a front squat feels like and really put a lot of the pressure more on my quads, really help build up my lower back some. And you don't have to worry about things like grip issues with a front squat position normally. So I love this thing. I try to work it in as much as I can, which still isn't as much as I'd like, but as of right now, what I try to do is a session a week with this and a session a week with the bar on my back, and it's worked out pretty well for me. Now, in terms of this bar, some of the things I really like about it compared to maybe some of the other safety squat bars you've seen is, number one, the padding by far and away is the best that I've seen, outside of maybe the Kabuki Transformer bar, which is a whole nother beast and looks great, but it's also really pricey. This bar as is goes on sale from Elite FTS a lot. It's usually somewhere between $300 and $400, but like I said, they put it on sale all the time. This one, especially compared to the Rogue Safety Squat Bar, which I see all the time, hands down, the Elite version is better. Again, the padding, it's night and day difference, and that's going to make a big difference if you have this on your back and you're going to be using it all the time. I would say the biggest downside to this bar in terms of the construction is they have this clear coat that they use on it, which looks pretty nice, but literally the first time you put any weight on the sleeves, you're going to get that clear coat cracking off. Other than that, though, it's great. I would say the sleeves are also a little bit thinner than your normal sleeve, so not all your clips are going to fit onto the end of it. The ones that I have are the older version Elite lockjaw collars. They seem to work okay. I know Elite FTS actually sells some of their own that work on this. You can also just go to Home Depot and buy some clamps or Lowe's, and I think that would work fine as well. But this is probably like I said, the best specialty bar I would recommend outside of a normal power bar. If you're going to buy another bar outside of that, this would be a good one to go to. And this is also probably the reason I don't use my Duffalo bar as much as I should, because in theory they do a lot of the same stuff by taking the pain away from your shoulders if you have that, and also kind of putting the weight out in front of you because of the camber. I just really like this one better as of right now. All right, so I still have my Archon multi-grip barbell as well. This thing you can't really beat for the price or quality. It's under $100. It allows you to do multiple grips of things, and the build quality is really nice on it, again, considering the price. I don't use it a ton just because, again, as I already mentioned, I don't have a ton of time. But if I have close grip work, I'll usually use this barbell just because, again, it's there, it's easy, and it's a nice way to switch things up. I don't know what I'm doing with this curl bar here. I bought it. I never use it. I got it on Amazon. It's a cap or body solid. I think it costs like $40. I mean, for $40, I guess it's not bad. It serves its purpose, which for me is collecting dust or just letting me hang things on it. But if you're looking for a curl bar and don't want to break the bank, this is probably a very viable option. I just don't have a lot of room for curls. But hopefully that'll change soon. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is this big thing right here between my legs, and then maybe we'll talk about the shoulder rock too, if you know what I'm saying. But this is the Raw Finish Kabuki Shoulder Rock. I've had this for roughly a year. Again, I don't use it that often, which you're probably sensing a trend here. Again, in theory, I thought I was going to use it a lot to help warm up before I bench, and I have done that a little bit, and I've liked it when I've used it, but it's just a matter of finding the time. Now, also because I'm inside and you're supposed to be doing overhead swings with these, I thought once the summer came around, I would use this more outside and just come right back in and go to bench, but I just haven't found that to be the case, which is one of the reasons why I haven't done a review on it yet. But again, I got it for a good deal on Black Friday, which is one of the reasons I picked it up. So there's that. So those are the barbells that I own. If you have any questions about them, you can either take a look at the reviews if I've done them to this point. If you don't see a review on one of the bars and you want me to do one soon, let me know in the comment section below. Or if you have other questions, let me know down there as well. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.